On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping is the motor vessel Ruby anchored off of England, another Beirut. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So I've been bombarded by requests to do this specific story. In truth, I've been bombarded by other requests doing other stories. Obviously, what's going on the East and Gulf Coast with the impending strike there has been taking a lot of time. But I do want to address this issue because there's a lot of bad information going on with this vessel. And if you think the motor vessel Ruby is the most dangerous ship on the high seas right now, you are mistaken. But we're going to put the Ruby into context, discuss the carriage of ammonium nitrate, and what you should be concerned and not concerned about this vessel. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. So when you talk about ammonium nitrate and the carriage on board ships, you're talking about Texas City, April of 1947, when the SS Grand Camp exploded following a massive fire on board. The fire and explosion killed about 500 people in and around Texas City, including wiping out the entire fire department. The ship's anchor flew 1.6 miles and is now a memorial at its resting spot. So the danger of ammonium nitrate is there. However, should you be concerned about a ship carrying 20,000 tons of ammonium nitrate anchored in international waters off the coast of England? Well, let's take a look at the Ruby. So some details on motor vessel Ruby. To do that, we go to our buddies at Marine Traffic. So this is a ship, general cargo type vessel, built 12 years ago, registered under Malta flag, carrying capacity of 37,000 tons, length overall of 183 meters. If we look at its visits over the past year, we know it's coming out of Tormsø just recently. It was over on the White Sea coming out of Russia, but before that, it had been sailing roughly between Europe and Asia. This is a 5-hold ship with a tween deck between it. This means that the cargo, the 20,000 tons of ammonium nitrate, is not packed together as 20,000 tons of ammonium nitrate. It is segregated. So that's a key issue there. You don't have all of that ammonium nitrate together in one vast compartment. The ship can carry roughly around 14,500 cubic meters of cargo. The ship is not fully loaded at this time. When we look at ownership of this company, its beneficial owner is Adora Holding Companies. They're out of the Marshall Islands. The registered owner is Ruby Enterprise out of Malta. The commercial manager is Serenity Ship Management, around since 2018, located in the United Arab Emirates. Sometimes these companies are fronts for Russian companies. We just don't know enough about Serenity Shipping to make that statement here. This is an image of Ruby from Marine Traffic, a 5-hold ship. Between the holds are the cranes right here that you'll see. The ship is self-sustaining. In other words, it can offload itself. Question is the ammonium nitrate in bulk form or is it in bags? Probably I would envision it being in bags and modular within the hold, which means, again, offloading the vessel will take time, but not as much as if you have to scoop out. Here's the track of Ruby sailing from that northern Russian port. What we believe happened with Ruby is she grounded at some point, causing damage to the ship's rudder, propeller, and her hull. The ship then sailed north. We believe it didn't encounter really the problem until maybe up here north of the Arctic. It went into Tromsø, which we'll talk about, then proceeded down along the coast of Norway, waited for entrance into the Denmark Straits, and now she is sitting off the coast of England. Here's Ruby on Marine Traffic. She is outside the territorial 12-mile limits of the English Channel. She is not in the main shipping channel. She is pulled over literally to the side. A couple of reasons we think that has occurred. Number one, they were waiting for their escort tug to go into port and come back out fully fueled, ready to escort the vessel. Also because of weather situation in the area. Now, there is concern about the Ruby being in this position, obviously, because of a potential fire explosion on board the vessel, which I'll deal with in a minute. There is also concern about a ship called the SS Robert Montgomery. This is a vessel sunk during World War II, loaded with explosives. That vessel is over here near Sheerness, and it's about 36 miles away, so it's not like the vessel is close by and creating problems. However, To give you an idea of the danger Ruby has, I went to this simulator which simulates nuclear explosions. And I punched in the data here for Ruby. So here is Ruby's roughly estimated position. We're going to simulate a 20 kiloton nuclear explosion. Now, ammonium nitrate is not the same as TNT. It doesn't have the same explosive level. Plus, this ammonium nitrate is segregated, as I said before, into 5 holes in tween decks, so you would not get the same explosive force. But if you detonate it, which I just did here, you get a series of impacts. So a fireball would emerge roughly 0.27 kilometers. That'd be the radius of the fireball. The heavy blast damage would be 0.6 kilometers. Moderate blast damage, 1.24 kilometers. We'll skip radiation radius because that doesn't really exist in a conventional blast. The thermal radiation blast is 1.91 kilometers, and then the light blast damage radius is 3.19 kilometers. So where that vessel is doesn't come anywhere close to land, barely actually impacts the area around the main shipping lane. So unless you're sailing within a few kilometers of the ship, should something catastrophic happen on the vessel, you're pretty safe. Now, I just want to note something here real quick before people sit there and go, Sal, what the hell do you know about any of this stuff? When I worked for the U.S. Navy's Military Sealift Command, I worked the float prepositioning program. And what we dealt with was ships loaded to the gills with explosives. And so we had to deal with net explosive weight on board vessels and where we can put ships. So when we anchored vessels off of Guam, Saipan, the Mediterranean, and most importantly down in Diego Garcia, we had to do calculations for if that ship ever detonated its entire cargo, what is the radius you want to be around? And so I'm a little bit familiar with dealing with net explosive weights in this category. So Maritime Executive has been really following this story extremely well and have documented this. So this is one of their first stories back in early September 3rd. A ship loaded with ammonium nitrate ordered out of Tormsø by Norwegians. So one of the first ports that this ship sought protection from because of damage and because of the sea condition was the port of Tormsø. This is the most northern port in Norway, major northern port in Norway. However, the concern was bringing in this vessel into a downtown region with such a large explosive cargo. Usually you would keep this ship out at anchor and offload it at very particular ports. The cargo's initial destination was the Canary Islands, where they were going to offload this cargo. They sought a port of refuge. Now, ships in distress have to be accommodated, but there has to be a mitigation for danger. And anchoring off of Norway is very tricky. You've done it before. It's extremely deep water off Norway. It's literally fjords. It's cliffs sticking up out of the water. So there isn't a lot of places where you can really anchor vessels at times. And the port of Tromsø and the Norwegian government said, no, you can't stay here. Then you get this September 11th story. Cargo ship loaded with dangerous ammonium nitrate seeks port in Lithuania. The ship was going to transit the Danish Straits, head into Lithuania, offload its cargo somewhere, and then go into a dry dock. We believe the vessel touched bottom, has hull damage, propeller damage, and rudder damage. We get this story from September 19th. Mysterious cargo ship laden with ammunition nitrate is now underway. The ship departed from Norway, was looking for a port to go to for both offloading its cargo and for repairs. We then get this one on September 21st. Denmark sets restrictions for transit of ammonium nitrate laden vessel. The ship had anchored off the Danish Straits, but Denmark was putting restrictions in for the ship to come through the area. Concerns, obviously, for the damage on board and the cargo. You don't want it exploding off the port of Copenhagen. You don't want it under the bridges. And so there was a lot of restrictions being put on place. The ship was going to go to Lithuania for a port visit, a dry docking, but you have to get the cargo off the vessel. You gotta get cargo off all vessels before you dry dock, because dry docking plans are set for ships in empty condition, not loaded condition. Then we get this story, September 23rd. Ammonium nitrate laden bulker turns toward Malta searching for port. The ship is registered in Malta. Malta does have shipyard capacity, and so the ship began its transit towards Malta. And then September 27th, UK's latest to track movement of cargo ship laden with ammonium nitrate as the ship came to anchor off the coast of southeastern England. And I am not going to share with you all the tweets and other issues about this. Let's be clear about a couple things. Number one, because this ship has a connection to Russia, it loaded ammonium nitrate out of Russia. There's a question about the operating company being a Russian company, even though it's based in the UAE. There's a lot of suspicion associated with it. Everything that has been going on from Russia, Ukraine to Nord Stream, you name it, all of this has been going on. I understand that, number one. Number two, Russia exports several million tons of ammonium nitrate every year, which means that there are several hundred of vessels like Ruby running around the world with ammonium nitrate on board, not to mention that there are other countries that export ammonium nitrate. So we have ships sailing with ammonium nitrate everywhere, going in and out of ports. This is hazardous material. And so there is a lot of rules and preventions that are put into place to ensure these ships don't sail into a downtown region, anchor, and have a dangerous cargo. Now, the fear here was the ship arrived in Tormsø, and for some reason that nobody realized that the ship was loaded with 20,000 tons of ammonium nitrate, and the ship was allowed to dock in a place it shouldn't have docked. This happens, unfortunately, a lot because of not enough information being dispatched and shared. Third, there are a lot more dangerous ships on the world's ocean than a ship loaded with ammonium nitrate. Believe me. You have other vessels with much more dangerous cargo out there, not to mention Navy vessels. I think the most dangerous vessels on the high seas today are Russian ballistic missile nuclear submarines floating around there, not the least of which because they're carrying nuclear bombs on board, but because they're Russian ballistic missile submarines, and Russian submarine track record's not the best. On cargo ships, I mean, you have a lot of cargo out there. You've got liquefied natural gas, which doesn't quite go off the way most people think it does, but there are ships carrying other types of chemicals, oxidizing agents, you name it. There is a lot of nasty stuff that is out there being sailed across the world's oceans. It's great that the visibility is out there with Ruby, that people are being conscious of the idea that there are dangerous ships out there. However, if Russia is planning to do something, I think the jig is up. I think we know about Ruby. I don't think they're going to sneak in and detonate a vessel and cause damage after the fact. I mean, it's pretty sure that this is pretty good public knowledge at this point. And now the big issue here is dealing with the Ruby. You do not want this vessel sinking with 20,000 tons of ammonium nitrate on board. It will cause a massive environmental damage. So we need to be focusing on a solution to this ship's problem, not keep highlighting the danger of the ship. Because again, this gets to be very much like Serenity on fire down in the Red Sea, where everybody knows the danger, but there's nothing being done to fix it. There are dangers at sea. We had a similar issue a few years ago off the coast of India and then off Sri Lanka with the Express Pearl. Express Pearl, a ship carrying hazardous material, caught fire. It was denied entry into the UAE and India and went to Sri Lanka. And when it arrived off Sri Lanka, the fires built back up on the vessel. The ship sank off the coast and had a massive environmental disaster. You need to fix this. You can't just tell this vessel to go away and hope for the best, because then it becomes somebody else's problem. This is international shipping. Everyone has a role to play in this. And what needs to be done is that we need to get a plan put together for how you deal with the Ruby, both with offloading the cargo and for a shipyard for this vessel to go in and ensure that there is monitoring of the vessel as it goes on. Any ship that suffers damage is in a precarious position, and we need to make sure about it. The chance of a massive explosion, I would say, is very low on this. Of course, you can set it off if you want, but that involves a lot to do that. There's no evidence that is happening on this vessel. What is evident is that some poor seamanship led to a grounding, and now we have hull, rudder, and propeller damage. And this ship has got to be very careful where it goes. What you don't want is what happened in Halifax in 1917, when you had two vessels collide, starting a fire on a ship laden with ammunition, and then you have the massive explosion that took place in the port of Halifax, basically a small nuclear detonation that took place. Obviously, concern will be centered around this vessel. Whatever port this ship goes into should be given a wide berth with a lot of protection around it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit the super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly or yearly subscriber. Got a video dropping tomorrow, Monday, on the discussion I had with Matt Leffler, the armchair attorney, about what could happen should the strike take place on Tuesday, October 1st in the U.S. Gulf and East Coast ports with the International Longshoremen's Association and the U.S. Maritime Alliance. Till our next episode, Sal, signing off.